Hello. All right. I'm Mark Chiusano, reading from my story McSweeney's. I think I got here just on time. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me put this up as high as I can. So once again, I'm Mark Chiusano. I'm going to be reading my story from McSweeney's called Sanchez Day. It's awesome, issue 60. We're going to wait a little bit for some people to come on. I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on here. We're in Brooklyn, where I live. This is my bookshelf. You could see my Robert Moses book, like a good New York journalist. It was over there. The Robert Caro book. I'm a columnist and editorial writer for Newsday, and I write fiction as well. I wrote a collection, Marine Park, a couple years ago. Check that out as well. Big thank you to McSweeney's for having me today. Really excited to be in this issue with so many great writers. By the way, shout out to the truly awesome Holly Andres for these photos. Check that out. I mean, they're incredible. So cool. The one for mine in my story, Sanchez Day, is really awesome. It's basically a picture of the bag that one of the characters is tasked with carrying all the time. So before we start, I just want to say too that this is the official issue 60 release party for this McSweeney's issue. Again, thanks so much for having me. And the next year after me, McSweeney's doing a whole bunch of these readings, and the next one after me, Monday at the same time, will be the Great May Nardone. And there's going to be more readers all week. So you could check back on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, regular updates about that kind of thing for more readers. And we're going to do a Q&A at the end, and maybe at the beginning too, so shout it out if you have them. Feel free. And the other thing too that I should mention is that there's a discount for subscribing and for this issue. Which there's a couple of them, so you can check them out. There's going to be info on this link at the very end. Just check out this story at the very end, and you take a look about subscribing. It's a good deal. So we're at this McSweeney's number 60. Really, really cool issue. Really pumped to be in this. I'm also really happy that they let me read a baseball story on tonight, which is opening night for baseball. I don't know how many baseball fans we got out there. I don't know what's going on with baseball tonight because I've been working, and I've been getting ready to read this story. So hopefully everyone's baseball teams are doing well. People are being safe. Maybe you guys saw Anthony Fauci do that really strange throw from the pitcher's mound. Really not good. He's a good basketball player supposedly and very good public official, but not exactly a pitcher, apparently. Can't have everything. Guy's probably been inside for a long time, so can't be perfect. But yeah, so baseball's going on, and thankfully it's back. But whether or not, your team is playing tonight, you can check out a little piece of my story, which has some baseball in it. This is my brother who says that there's a rain delay right now. Very tough. My brother works for Major League Baseball, so, he should know. He handles the website, so you can, address all of your complaints about Major League Baseball's website to him, Scott Chiusano. But, it's going to be a good baseball season. We're going to have a lot of fun. All right, I'm going to read this story, and thank you guys for tuning in. Again, McSweeney's issue 60, and it's called Sanchez Day. So basically this story is about a rookie baseball player. It's just coming up. Just got into the majors, and it's about his relationship with a mentor of his, whose name's Sanchez, Santos Sanchez, and the rookie is playing for the Brewers, and we start with him coming into the Major League Baseball park for one of his first times. Sanchez Day. Of course it was sad. Of course there would be emotions. Naturally it would be a big deal for other people at the ballpark. But Connor hadn't expected this. When he made the last turn from the player's entrance to Miller, he saw the crowd. Their eyes turned to him as he dipped over the speed bump. Bob from security already recognizing him from his license plate. Even him, a rookie, he thrilled to that. And opening the gate. The people's eyes swept over his car, and he could feel them wondering. Was it him? Could this be the one? Was their moment at hand? No, it was just Connor Beltalt, a young guy with a not-great baseball name, 1+ pitch and 2 mediocre ones, who had been called up midway through the final month to finish up a dead season. Soon they'd know his name and his car, Connor was sure. But it was the captain they were looking for today, the franchise player, the guy who had painted the city gold for the last 15 years. Well, sort of gold. The Brewers hadn't sniffed at the World Series in decades, and even in their most recent Division Series appearance, the captain had been conspicuously quiet. There had been whispers then. He wasn't up to the pressure. That was a long time ago, though, and now at the ends the whispers had been painted over with nostalgia, so much so that as Connor's car inched through the player's entrance, the crowd was chanting the captain's name. Sanchez, 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 Sanchez. Sancho Sanchez only ever went by his surname. You're a catcher on one team for that long, and your name will be more familiar than even those of the few all-star pitchers who had cycled through Milwaukee. Forget about rookie relievers. Connor buzzed down his window and took off his sunglasses, smiled, waved to the throng, and saw all of their faces go blank at the same time. The Sanchez chant stopped. Connor shut down his window and continued into the bowels of the stadium, already in a foul mood. It was Sanchez Day at the ballpark, all right. A testament maybe to the riches gained by staying with one team all your career, by building a loyal fan base and never being cruel to it. A reason to avoid the pleasures of free agency. Not that Connor was anywhere near that. He was hoping to grab a couple more good innings in the remainder of the season and convince the club to let him start in the majors come spring. He knew he was at the beginning of the ramp. He just needed to prove it. And Sanchez being gone might allow the spotlight to shift. Everyone knew the story. First player of Hispanic descent to really make a mark in Wisconsin. He'd started playing the week after 9/11 and, would you believe it, people yelled to get the Muslim off the field, even though Sanchez was only 1/4 Lebanese. Another quarter was Guatemalan, the remaining half Mexican. He didn't speak a word of Spanish. He'd grown up just outside Milwaukee, hometown kid. Both his parents were born here, were professionals, and his walk-up music was All-Star by Smash Mouth, if that fills out the picture. But this wasn't the big city Yankees, the team that Connor had grown up idolizing, alongside his father from the distant pastures of Suffolk County, Long Island. Sanchez brought his own city into the 21st century. He was a career .290 hitter, probably the highlight of his stat line. For a couple years in the aughts, he was in the top 5 or so in home runs, and one year he even won a home run derby, which then ruined him to a bad uppercut for the rest of that season. He was beloved for his golden arm, which for nearly 2 decades had kept runners close to the bag and thinking twice about stealing, with his signature move being a snap behind the runner to the first baseman catching someone sleeping. He liked to say in interviews that it wasn't strength or muscle memory that did it, but knowing a man's mind. He was always good for a zen line or two like that. He knew just when the runner was dozing out for half a millisecond. He could read something in the tempo of the stadium. That was what he told the interviewers. To the pitching staff, he'd always been a boon for his ability to control their tempers between innings, and also for his steady demeanor and quiet sermons delivered from behind home plate. This was what Connor had heard. Hell, it was one of the reasons he'd been so keen to start with the Brewers after their old bird dogs started showing up at his Shirley high school games. Baseball was a big deal in Shirley, but he felt he'd never gotten his fair due. Everyone idolized big hitters in those years, the after effects of the steroid era not yet having worn off. Connor's father, a puffed-up man and a 2-bit local politician, asked him on his irregular weekend visitations why he wouldn't rather take a cut every few innings like a real man, see what things looked like from the plate. Connor hated hitting. He liked being alone on the mound. He liked being the center of attention. Once, when he was very young, he considered going to theater after his mother took him on the LIRR into New York City for a drama program called Tada. Connor had loved the stagecraft, the memorization of lines, the thrill of the small audience of mothers who clapped and looked somewhat beautiful out there in the black box theater. But after the divorce, his mother said the train tickets were too expensive, and she didn't have time to drive him in on Saturdays. So baseball then, and he essentially taught himself the ins and outs of pitching, became familiar with the moments of boldness and apprehension, the feeling of attacking a hitter and coming out victorious when they swung and missed. Connor willed himself to success, but he always felt he had more to learn about the game's philosophy, more to be shown about strategy that wasn't being offered by his high school coach, a town council buddy of his father's, who didn't give him the time of day after the divorce. Yes, it was ugly, until Connor's senior year. when he grew 3 inches and his fastball hit 93. The bird dog and his decidedly undramatic windbreaker in Connor's mother's suburban kitchen promised before Connor signed that the Brewers had a secret weapon for developing young pitchers. To bring them to their fullest potential, they had Sanchez. Connor parked his car, and as he navigated the dank stadium corridors leaning to the locker room, he could hear the Sanchez cheers reigniting far above him, and he remembered the time 3 years earlier when he'd first met the illustrious catcher. It had been down during spring training with the team in Florida, a moment of maximum potential for Connor and all the other newbies. Sure, he knew they all felt they were something special, in particular the other 17 and 18-year-olds who had skipped college ball in its display of mediocrity. He was amped up. He was sharing a hotel room with a guy from the DR named Dominic, who seemed shy and apprehensive, so they shared a couple shots of tequila that Dominic had brought, and then went straight to bed at something like 10 p.m. It didn't help, though, because Connor didn't sleep a second, and spent the whole night oscillating between arrogance and fear, feeling he didn't belong and also that he was too good for A-ball, picturing that first throw, that first step over the foul line, all the coaches watching in awe and envy. And the next morning he knew he had made the right choice. He knew his on-ramp was just now extending, because after changing into his uniform and nervously scatting with Dominic and a couple of the other new pitchers, and then running and tossing and stretching and warming up again, and stretching more and sitting on the new grass waiting for something to happen while the hitters started BP, finally the pitching coach, Olafsson, came up to the group of them. Connor heard one of the veteran pitchers mutter, "Here we go." And right next to Olafsson was the god, Sanchez, a bear of a man smiling this 100-watt smile that seemed even more powerful than the brilliant South Florida day. When Olafsson addressed them, every pitcher stood up, like it was the military or church. "All right, men," he said. "Glad we're all back safe and sound for another season. We'll have a lot going on today, but I'm going to turn it over to Sanchez for a few words, mostly because his paycheck's bigger than mine, God's my witness." Sanchez's arms, crossed in front of his chest, were the width of a bundle of bat barrels, his hands like 2 batting helmets. "Can we get all the rookies in a line, please?" Sanchez said, his voice like thunderous applause. "This is important." As Connor joined Dominic and about 6 or 7 others, it struck him how small they looked, how much like boys and teenagers. They were boys and teenagers, compared with the man before them. Connor tried to puff up his chest and tense his biceps. He prepared for wisdom. "This one," said Sanchez, pointing at Connor. "The big guy. You look like you think you're something special." The sun must have gotten hotter, because Connor felt the spotlight fall on him. So that's the beginning of the story, and it goes on for a little while. The kind of fun thing that happens is that in that scene right after, Connor he's chosen by Sanchez for this like rookie hazing ritual where Sanchez gives him this bag. So that's the bag that awesome photo is of. And he's told he can't open the bag. And if he opens the bag, that's going to be it. He's going to be out. And he's got to carry the bag everywhere and bring it to Sanchez's room. And so he does this for a long time. And he basically like keeps his part of the bargain because he really wants to do well. But then he gets more and more frustrated by Sanchez, and that's what happens next. I actually started this story. I got the idea for this story when I went to see Mike Piazza's last game. He was a famous Met a couple years ago, and he was the captain of the Mets at that time. And it was this really kind of sad, sort of anticlimactic last game. And you kind of wanted him to do incredible and like have this incredible ending, and it just didn't really happen for Piazza. And so that sort of sadness, like in the great John Updike story about Ted Williams' last game, that kind of sadness at the end got me going for this story. So the end of the story is Sanchez's last game. No spoiler alerts. So that's the story. I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any. It's kind of a simple story, It's not like it's not crazy. All right, we got one question here, which is, why did you decide to write about baseball? It's a great question. I love writing about baseball. It doesn't always go so well. I think when you write about something that you love a lot, it doesn't. You kind of have to get some distance from it in order to make it sort of make it a full story, like a story that you can kind of live in for a while. So I played baseball growing up my whole life. I played in high school. I played we had like a junior varsity and a club team in college. And then the most fun thing I got to do was playing in Switzerland for a couple of summers in college, which was incredible. And, the Swiss are not incredible at baseball. There are some good Swiss players, but they as a group are not like amazing. So I was able to kind of get in there and play a little bit. It was a lot of fun. And that was kind of my baseball career. And yeah, so let's see, another question. How did your own experiences influence your writing? It's a great question. And I appreciate these baseball themed questions. I think that I always, with stories like this, I try to take a real thing and then sort of morph it a little bit. Like I often start with an image that I remember or an event. So like in this story, it was that Piazza last game. And then kind of think about how certain things would be different if I just tweaked little pieces of it. And it kind of, even with the first draft of this story was actually very close to that Piazza game and like almost exactly what happened there. But, it's like it doesn't take much to start moving away from that. Like you almost can't, you can't actually perfectly capture reality, even if you tried. So it's sort of, you start with this real event and then you end up with this kind of great story. At least that's what's been like with me. Oh man, okay, great. Question about hazing. Did you ever have or hear about a hazing experience like the black bag? I did not. I've never had a black bag situation, but hazing is like a great tradition in baseball. I think it's somewhat better, or it can be better than hazing in other sports, particularly like football or something like that, because there's sort of like fun things that you can do in baseball hazing. So for example, the sort of famous one that's in movies is, you tell the rookie, a veteran player tells the rookie, come and bring me the keys to the batter's box, the batter's cage. Or, get me the left-handed fungo, right? Which just like doesn't exist. And so, you can kind of like make fun of the rookies for that. I once heard a kind of crazy story about a hazing thing where a catcher was told he had to like duck as a ball came by so that it would hit the umpire in the chest, because this was like an umpire that the team didn't like, which is kind of crazy, a little bit violent. I think the umpire was okay because they're wearing these chest protectors, but still a little crazy. So yeah, hazing. Don't do it, folks. It's not good. This is a good question. How does your journalism career and writing influence or inform your creative writing? It does a lot, I think. I generally view writing as a craft and a job and a trade. I think it's something you get better at. I don't think that you kind of wait for the muse or influence or whatever. And so I've always felt that on the journalism side, it kind of teaches you to treat writing like a trade and a craft and something you get better at. And also to write on deadlines and not be too precious about kind of thinking things over too much. And also teaches you to be always reporting and always observing. And I think that, that's sort of the key to all good fiction writing, really, is looking outside yourself. And whether it's literally reporting, like actually calling someone and asking questions, which I think I do in my fiction, and I know a lot of good writers do that. That's a version of reporting, or just observing things very carefully. One of my friends, Molly Dekdar, who's a great writer, likes to say this thing about, a great way to end a story is, something that's very closely observed, just like a quiet, closely observed moment. And I think that's kind of a way that's a version of reporting too. Like reporting is always kind of being quiet and closely observing things, and asking good questions. Cool. Oh, I like this question. What are your favorite books, passages, or essays about baseball? I think I mentioned this quickly at the beginning, but one of my very, very favorites is the John Updike essay about Ted Williams on the Red Sox. It's a really, really beautiful essay, and one of my favorite things about it, spoiler alert, but you should read it anyway, is that it moves away from the game. It moves away from Williams, like, as he leaves the game, and just kind of zeroes in on the other players on the field, even though it's an essay about Ted Williams. And it's this beautiful kind of like meditation on life and aging and death and dying. It's great. It's awesome. And then in terms of, a nonfiction book, which is incredible, called The Last Best League. Very underrated. The Last Best League. I think the author's name is Jim Collins, I want to say. But it's about the Cape Cod Baseball League, which is it's sort of the last league. It's the best league that's not professional, is sort of the pitch of the book. And college players play there in their last year before going pro. And it's this beautiful, just kind of fun summer romp where these kids are all there, but they're so excited to get to the majors, and so kind of, so hopeful it's going to happen. And the cool thing is that the book follows some players that make it and some who don't. And so it's this really nice kind of, this kind of bittersweet irony at the end. Okay, cool. I'm going to take a couple more questions, but I really like this one. Which is harder, to be a good writer or to be a good baseball player? Really, really good. I think they're actually kind of similar in a way, because they both are all about repetition. You have to put your reps in, and they're all about the errors being what you want to bat away. It's sort of, and it's maybe even more journalism than creative writing, but you're sort of, the whole job, it doesn't matter if you're sort of doing perfect all the time and you do 9 out of 10 things right. If you make one error, that's it. That's the whole ball game. You can't make any errors. So it's always this kind of tightrope act where you really have to be sort of careful and on the top of your game at every moment. It's a very unforgiving sport. And just like writing, you don't get many chances in baseball as opposed to a game like basketball, right? Where you're always touching the ball and you're always passing and shooting and scoring and whatever. In baseball, you might get 3 at-bats a game, 3 or 4 at-bats. You might get 2 ground balls a game, if that. And so you have to make the most of every single one. And I think that's true with writing too, that, there's only so many things you can write, and it takes a long time to write things. So you really have to kind of, your talent has to be sort of just zoned in to the moment and be able to kind of pull something off at the moment when you have a chance. Okay, last question. This is great. And thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun. And I would say once more, McSweeney's issue 60. It's an awesome issue. And tune in for the next writers who are going to be reading on Monday. Okay, last question. What's the high school sports what if that you mythologize every day? I love this, and I know the guy who's asking this is a high school wrestler, great wrestler, and I'm curious to know what the sort of wrestling mythology is. But for me, I played on a team that we only had a home field when I was a senior in high school. This was, and it was a field that didn't really have a fence. It had kind of no right field. It was basically a soccer field, and I always wanted to have hit a home run and over a fence, not a ground rule, not just hit it far and keep running. And I never ever hit a home run over a fence in my entire baseball career. Really sad, really sad. I wish I had. I also played on a field where, if you guys know Manny Ramirez, famous Red Sox, he very famously, this is a legend, he hit the ball over, so the field is right under the Manhattan Bridge in New York, if you could picture that. He hit the ball supposedly over the fence, over a path mark, and kind of past the bridge, and the field is in front of the bridge. Totally crazy, totally maybe made up. I have no idea, but I've heard so many people tell this story, and I tell this story all the time, that I feel like it's almost true. In some ways, that's what fiction is, and we're just gonna tell our stories to each other. We tell ourselves stories in order to hit home runs someday. All right, thanks very much, guys. I'm going to sign off. Again, Mark Chiusano. This is McSweeney's number 60. Thank you, guys. Cheers, everybody.